Okay, so let me just show you that in a minute. Okay, so on API versioning on your Laravel 12 application, I'm going to show you a very simplest way to add API versioning in your application. But this simplest way, it requires you to be more careful, I can say, because it will depend on how you store or you organize your files. So to add the API versioning, it's just like creating another copy of what you have before and just have those changes that you want to add on your logics. So for example, at first, let's say we had this controller for, let's say, for book, and at a moment in time, let's say you want to add another, let's say, thing, and you have just added, let's say, 2 fields, and you just want to add another way of filtering. So instead of just adding it directly here, let's say you've figured it out and you analyze it and you see it may cause breaking changes to the applications that already are utilizing this API. So after that, you decided to create a new version of API. So what you are going to do here, I'm going to show you a very quick way to add versioning. So for example, before I change anything on your logics here, so for example, we can just do that here on our routes. So let's go to api.php. So here, all of these URLs were usable on your first API. So means that everything was working just fine. So what we can do here is we can be able to merge all of these routes in a single, let's say, version. Okay, so it means that when you just access these, you should be able to access them when you are in API version 1. Okay, so you may decide, like, let's say this will remain, but all of these should be on a single, let's say, version 1, and you just want to create another one for version 2. So to do so, you need to add a group to your routes. So that group, maybe you can just use it here. So for example, you can just apply that group here. So you can just say route, then you can add group, and you can give the let's say you can just use the prefix first, and let's say we are going to add the version 1, and then you're just going to give the group, and from that group is where you're going to call the callback function. Okay, and here is where you are going to pass all of these methods. So now let's try to cut and paste them inside here. Okay, so now all of these methods will be first check for the authentication by using ThinkTerm. So they will check for authorization. After that, they will be added the prefix of v1, means that these will be all falling under the version 1 of your API. So what is going to happen now, if we try to access any of these methods, we won't be able to do so. So let's first try to log in, and then let's try to access, let's say, the authors. So let's go back here and let's try to log in. So let's go to the login here. Okay, now let's try to log in again. Okay, so there is a new token that was issued, so this one. So now let's try to get the authors. Okay, so now let's change this, paste the new token, and now let's try to send that request. Okay, so you can see the route API for authors could not be found. Why? Because we have just changed the here. So you see now it belongs to this group. So we have this prefix. So they need to add this prefix on any of these method or routes in order for them to be able to access any of these version 1 APIs. So here you need to add the prefix. So after API, you should add v1. then forward slash, then authors. So by doing so, if we go back here, now we should be able to access the authors. So that's how easy you can just do that. But now let's say you want to add the version 2. That's where the issue comes in. So here you can just add another group. Let's say you just want to add the group for version 2. Okay, so here you can just add the route, you can add the prefix bv2, then you apply the group, and then closure or callback function, and then here. Okay, so you want to add another version 2 route or API endpoint. So to do so means there is something that you have figured out and you want to update it. So to do so, as I've mentioned before, you can just do that by, let's say for example, you have just changed a very little thing on your let's say authors or book controller. Okay, so for example, you have added here a new method. Okay, let's say you have added a new method. I just want to create a random method, so I just say function, let's say 5 books. Okay, or we can just say first 5 books. Okay, so just that. Okay, and then here you want to get the books from books, which is our model, and then you want to say, let's say latest, and then we want to take only 5. Okay, after that, now we need to return a new book resource. Okay, so we should return actually a collection of books like this way. So let's return the collection of books. So let's say this way, you can just return book resource, then the collection, and then we are going to pass the books. Okay, so this will be a new route that you have added, or the new method that you want to add to your version 2 API. Okay, so to do so means we need to define a new route here, but you cannot add that directly here because that is not among the resourceful or the default method. So it is not inside the update or the destroy method or any other method that you have. So what you need to do is to define a new method as we did for this one. So for example, for overdue list, we did this one. So we just created that from the borrowings. So you can see from the borrowing here, we have this return book and we have the overdue. So you just need to create a separate URL. So for example, that is the version 2 URL that you've added. So you can just do this and let's say get, and let's say 5 new, just say largest 5 books. Okay, and then after that we're going to say it comes from book controller. Okay, this should be class, then the method, check for that method that we've created, which is this one, and then let's paste it here and terminate that. Okay, so now means in your API version 2, the users will be able to access the following method. Okay, so for example, you can just paste all of these down here and add this one as the new route. So on version 2 means that they will be able to access all of this, but they will be also be able to access this new route. But for those who are using version 1, will not be able to access this new route. So what you can do, you can just be able, let's say, to copy let's say the following routes, so all of these, so you can just copy them and paste it down here. Okay, so that's how easy you can just do the versioning. So by just adding the change here on the same controller that is having the logics for version 1, and after adding that, you just need to create that route here in a separate way. Okay, so it means that after that, now the users can be able to access this new API endpoint. So for example, if we go back here and on books, so I just want to go to on books and add a new request, and I'm going to say this should be latest 5 books. Okay, and from here we need to get the books. So let me paste that new route, but remember this is on version 2, so you need to add the prefix of v2 then / latest 5 books. Okay, that way. And this is the get method. Make sure that we accept the let's change that to accept, and you should accept the application JSON. Okay, and this is it. It is inside the auth sanctum middleware, so means that you should be authenticated user to be able to access it. So now if we try to access it, you see we are unauthenticated. So now let's paste that BR token here, which I believe will be KHD, so it will be the same. Let me check it for the, yeah, so this is the one. Okay, so now let's try again and send the request, and you see call to undefined method. Okay, so this method is not defined. Now let's see what we have get here. Okay, yeah, here we need to get those data. Okay, now let's try again, and let me try to send that request again. Yeah, so you can see here we get the 5 books, you see. So we have the book 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you can see we are able to access this, but also we can be able to access any of these routes for version 2. So it means that if we want to get the books, so if we try to get the books here, so if we want to get the books, let's say from here, we can just change that one to version 2. So we can just change that to version 2, and we can just say books. Okay, and make sure that we accept the application JSON, and after that add the authorization. And now if we try to send that request, we should be able to see the books. So it means that this is just the simplest way that you can do, and this is the first approach that I'm showing you how to add the API versioning. Okay, which is a very let's say it gives you just a perfect way to do it, but in a simplest way. Okay, so the next thing is, for example, the changes that you want to do is quite big, and they can, let's say you don't want to mess up with this API version 1 controller. So what you can do, you can just create another controller. So for example, these controllers were created inside the controllers directory. So what you can do, you can just create a new controller. So for example, you can say PHP @ make controller, controller, and then you can just define here, let's say you can say this should be on API directory, then inside the directory called the version 2, okay, so which is v2, and then is where you are going to give the name of the controller. So for example, book controller, okay. So after clicking enter means this book controller, which will be usable for version 2, you see, it will be inside the API, then version 2. So after that means that all the book functionality for API version 2 can be defined here, okay. After that, if you try to access this here, means that it will not give you any issue. So for example, this new update method that we have added, you can just remove that and add it here. So let's remove that. So we don't need any changes here. After that, now import this. Also import the book resource. If you didn't change anything on book resource, so this should remain this way, okay. And now if we try to use this on your API version 2, means that we are going to use the API, the book controller from this new API version 2. So instead of using the first one, we are going to use this one, okay. But here you should be able to define aliases, because the book controllers are named the same. So you can just use the aliases if you want to add the aliases. Let's say if you want to say book controller version 2. So this will be the alias, but this one will be the first one. So here what you will do is just it will add this let's say an alias of this version 2 book controller, because this was the same with this one. So you have to create like a mirror of it. So that mirror is the one that you are going to use here. So you can see that is the difference. But when you are creating the controller here, you can be able even to, let's say, book controller version 2, and that is accepted. And this is, as I've mentioned before, this API versioning is how you just want to organize your files and how you want to use it. But the thing that you have to bear in mind is when you are doing the versioning and the way you are organizing your files, you have to make sure that even if one day you are not the one who is managing that API, the other developers can be able to understand what you are trying to do. So the best thing is, I believe that you can be able to, let's say, create these different directories. So by using different directories, I believe that will be a perfect way to do that, because on your APIs, every developer will understand that this is coming from, let's say, version 1, and if they check from version 2 here, they will see the difference. And if you use this way, this will be perfect, because you will not have these aliases here, okay. So you can just do that. For example, you can create that version 2, and if you create that, you see, so this will be created like that way. And instead of using this one, so you can just remove that and you go back here. So this is the API version 2, and you can just remove that from there and paste it here. So this will be book controller version 2, so that every one will understand that this is for version 2, okay. And now you can import that, and you need to update this one. So this should be book controller version 2. So import that one, and after importing that one means you should be able to see that new path that that class is found, okay. So that's how easy you can just do that. Okay, and this will always be working as you expected. So if you go back here and get the latest 5 books, you should be able to see them as usual. So now let's send that request, and you see we are still getting the same results or response. So that's how easy you can just add the API versioning. So you can see this is version 1. If you change that one to version 1, we don't have that URL, so means that if you send that request, you will not get anything. So you see the route, this one is not found. Okay, so that's how easy you can just do that. So by showing you this, I believe this marks the end of this video. So if you find this video to be useful and you have learned something new, please hit the like button. And if you find anything that you gives you a challenge, please reach me out on the comment section. Also, if you are new to the channel, consider to subscribe, share it with anyone that you feel this video can be helpful to them. So see you on the next video, where we'll be seeing other interesting projects. So peace.